Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss the 1925 version of The Wizard of Oz, starring Dorothy Dwan, Charles Murray, Oliver Hardy, Mandy Carr, Virginia Pearson, Bryant Washburn, and Joseph Swickard, directed by, I can't believe I'm saying this for a kid's film, Larry Seaman. Now, before I get into this, I should tell you now, I'm starting the Wizard of Oz retrospective series starting with this 1925 film to the 1939 Judy Garland film, to Journey Back to Oz, to The Wiz, to Return to Oz the Great and Powerful, and I've already reviewed Wicked, so I'll watch that one in spirit, and then leading up to Wicked Part 2, and I have also done The Muppets Wizard of Oz before, so there's no reason to add that one again or review it again, that kind of a thing. And like I said, I reviewed Wicked before when the Oscar nominees came out last year, and we'll see how this goes. So I am a little nervous about this series, and when you go through it with me, you will find out why. Let's get into this movie, because this is the one I've never seen, but the next one is the classic that I've seen many, many times, but let's get into this version. An old puppet master reads a story to his granddaughter called The Wizard of Oz, and it tells the story of what story, I don't really know. And like the 1920s Nosferatu film, it was just boring the daylights out of me, as the Wizard of Oz is the ruler of Oz, and the humor in this reminds me of the movies that starred Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton, but done in a much poor way. And we get a lady dancing, she's like she's a peacock, which looks dumb as hell, as this is while the granddaughter wants to read about Dorothy and the Scarecrow and the Tin Man and the Cowardly Lion, and that we'll see in the future movies. And I just want to get to the Judy Garland movie at this point while watching this whole movie. We get Dorothy getting kicked around by Uncle Henry, which feels pretentious, and it does feel, as is this plot, and this isn't as the movie for me, and I want to turn it off like I did Screamers, but as I'm getting very close to it, but while at the farm, but I'm just sticking around for it. I'm not going to pull that off again. And while at the farm, we see people working for the husband getting beat up by him, like Dorothy. And this is supposed to be a circus, and this is the worst way to show a circus and this is an hour and 11 minutes of pure straight circus comedy. While bees follow them, one of the three guys away, and it is the worst 1 hour and 11 minutes I'll never get back ever again. Never. Dorothy swings higher and higher until eventually the swings break off and gets workers with her husband creamed up, and they think it's the character Larry Seaman plays at nighttime coming, and it's storming outside, and they adopt the baby Dorothy coming to the door. Meanwhile, the Wizard of Oz getting threatened to be thrown in the dungeon unless he gets some papers about the baby, where she ends up in Kansas. And bad news travels fast. And do we need to hear that story? No, not in the least, as we get to years later, Dorothy, Dorothy, as I was very confused for most of the movie as a plane drops and looks for Dorothy on the letter again, and this is very confusing, and Dorothy really wants to know who she really is, and the people on the plane insist on coming in and taking Dorothy away from Aunt Em and Uncle Henry. So that's his name, huh? As this is a heck of a confusing show, and at this point, I don't like it. The plane people mess around with Dorothy and the workers as one jumps into hay, as in the thing for horses, and one of the workers pushes it away and to make the other hit the hard ground. And are the people on the plane magicians? Because they look like it, as they get shocked away and turned into different things thanks to a storm heading their way, as it turns into a scarecrow, the other into a tin man, and one more into a cowardly lion, because of a lightning strike hitting them at the storm hits their form and swings into a place where the Wizard of Oz is at, and it took it long enough for a very short movie, as they get out of a crash building to only create a castle where the Wizard of Oz lives at, and they learn Dorothy's real name is Dorothea, as Prince Kind introduces himself to them while they're being accused of being trespassers in the land of Oz. And I thought to myself, what land? As the score is preposterous. The people of Oz learn Dorothea is the ruler of Oz, and they're accepted there, as one of the workers hides from the guards while one of the other workers turns into a scarecrow, as this was a comedic but at the same time a stupid scene where the Scarecrow kicks the guard right in the booty, and they don't know who it is as one of the guards sees them and plays around with the Scarecrow, as they eventually find the Scarecrow wanting like walking like a man, while another man is in the tin pile. And after a while, it made sense on why they're called those things. And one more gets turned into a lion later on by disguising himself and while hiding himself in the lion's place to rest. Meanwhile, Dorothea doesn't feel like she doesn't belong there with Oz, while the Scarecrow is accused of being something by the Tin Man, as being explained by Prince Kind. And none of this is making sense as a silent movie, in my opinion, and I'm no longer wanting to pay attention to this pile of crud. We get the workers in a pile of crud, and the Scarecrow and the Cowardly Lion are taken there, and they give the Cowardly Lion a disguised way out of there as he wears a head, and the costume scaring the bejesus out of the guards as the sneak around to find Dorothy as Uncle Henry falls into some kind of muddy crud, and the Tin Man fights off against the Scarecrow by looking for him with the sword, which is a dumb comedic scene, and eventually comes up to the Cowardly Lion as the Scarecrow gets trapped in the lion's cage and gets encountered by a couple of lions and bumps into the Cowardly Lion as he puts on the mask. And how much more stupid can this movie get is beyond me, as this is not the story I remember watching as a kid. The Scarecrow threatens the Cowardly Lion on kicking him in the nose, and if he touches him again, and the Cowardly Lion switches places with the real lion, and Scarecrow eventually kicks a real lion in the nose until he sees the Cowardly Lion, and the real lion scares the crud out of the Scarecrow, as the lion tries to attack Scarecrow and finds a way to escape and gets encountered with the Cowardly Lion to a real lion, and a Cowardly Lion and Scarecrow do get outside eventually. And do I care? Absolutely not. While Dorothy is being harassed by Prime Minister Cruel, until Prince Kind comes in and fights the Prime Minister and defeats him, as the Scarecrow defeating the Tin Man by fighting him off. And the Prime Minister confesses he let Dorothy go to Kansas, and the guards take the Prime Minister away, and Prince Kind asks Dorothy to rule Oz with him, and the Scarecrow wins again attacked by the Tin Man, once again attacked by the Tin Man, as the Scarecrow gets taken by an airplane being flown by the Cowardly Lion, and the little girl wakes up, and Dorothy wakes up and grabs her doll and goes back to bed. And this climax is boring, but how boring? Let's talk about this in the rating, because none of this is making sense to me at all. I'll give this movie a 1.0 out of 10. This movie is boring, while the humor in this reminds me of an old movie either starring Charlie Chaplin or Buster Keaton, but done in a much poor way, as this movie is dumb as it is. So I want to get to the Judy Garland movie while watching this whole movie. It feels pretentious, as does the plot, as it isn't a movie. And is this supposed to be a circus? Because it feels the worst act in a circus I've ever seen. And this is an hour and 11 minutes long, as it's pure straight circus that I'll never get back in my life. Never. This is the worst take on the Wizard of Oz I've seen in my life, and we'll see how the Return to Oz does. And hopefully this retrospective series will make this the strong in this whole series, as this is the strongest non-recommendation for this movie, because I was confused for most of it. At a point, I don't like it, and for a short movie, it takes way too long to get to the point. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for this review, and next time I will be officially back with the 1939 Judy Garland film. And until then, I'm off to see the Wonderful Wizard of Oz.